The way we play Team Fortress 2 has changed a lot over the years. We went from having a select few thriving community servers to an abundance of Valve servers, with now the community servers slowly dying out. In order to understand where things are going, we need to look in the past to see where we have been. Many of you probably started playing after the free-to-play update in 2011, but if you played before the free-to-play update, you will know this all too well. All views are biased to some extent, and my view is no different. I played TF2 on launch, but didn't find the launch version of the game to be very fun. The medic had no auto-heal options, the engineers could not carry or move any buildings, and there was no cosmetics or unlocks of any kind. There was a fairly limited map pool as well, and I was coming from Team Fortress Classic and being a medic main there, and I loved to jump around and use the conch grenades. But I couldn't do that here, so I felt that the medic of TF2 was very passive and quite boring. And also at the time I was playing a Korean MMORPG called Night Online on Korean servers. And this was the first MMORPG that I ever played, and I was very invested in it, so it would take a lot for me to move on from that to really commit to anything else. So while I was being stationed in the army in 2009, I saw someone in my squad play TF2, but it looked different this time. He was playing sniper with a bow and arrow, and I thought that looked really fun. So I booted up the game and found that payload had been added, as well as really rare hats that dropped at random, plus more weapons for each class. The sandwich was a huge deal and I loved it, as well as the Uber Saw, which made me go back to playing a more aggressive medic and getting those 4 Uber Saws in to get that full Uber. And during this time, I played a lot of 2 Fort, since that's a map that, it makes your teammates and your enemies split up, and you normally don't have huge team fights, which allows you to have a lot of 1v1 and explore a lot of the mechanics in the game in an enclosed space, which is the reason I think 2 Fort is the most played map in TF2, as it is the most noob-friendly. In this time, there were no Valve servers. There were only community-driven servers. This meant that you had to search using a server browser and sort by ping, maps, players, etc., and try out different servers. This was a manual process that you did yourself. A server that you liked usually ended up in your favorites, and servers that you didn't like ended up in your blacklist. This was a trial and error process until you eventually ended up with a few servers with map rotations that you liked. And of course, other players who played on those servers also liked the same rotation. It was especially interesting if a server had good players on it, as in high skilled players. It made it more lucrative to be there, so you would endure waiting in line and playing on maps that you normally didn't like that much. But the level of teamwork, teammates, and sense of community is what made you endure that. Because at this time, it was not uncommon to have to wait for maybe 5 to 10 minutes to get into a game. This exclusivity and user-based sorting methods ensure that people with similar interests and values played on similar servers. People who wanted more out of the game gathered on servers and founded various communities. It was common to have to sit in a queue in order to join your favorite server, because it would usually be full of good players, and the wait time could be from 1 to 20 minutes depending on the day. Some servers offered donations and slot reservations, which was a good initiative to help fund the server cost, and also made sense at the time due to the scarcity of good servers compared to the amount of players. I would often find myself playing on some shitty 2 Fort 24/7 server or Mario Kart while I waited to get into my favorite server. If you are the only bad player on the server, with good players surrounding you on both sides, you will get better a whole lot faster. Usually in these community servers, everyone would know what they would be doing at all times. Medics would always be healing everyone, soldiers and demomen would always be rocket jumping around, and a lot of engineers would always help each other upgrade teleporters at spawn and work together on the other buildings as well. This is what I think is the reason why TF2 didn't have a tutorial or practice mode. Unknowingly, the community servers took it upon themselves to teach new players how to play the game by seeing what others were doing and doing what they were doing. It's a very natural way of learning things. When a game is pay to play, it gates certain players out of the equations. Mainly the ones that have to do more than just own a computer and have an internet connection. Players have to commit to a purchase. When you spend money, you generally have a different attitude towards the game than if you didn't. I have spent money on this. I need to make this worth my time and money. Hackers were not really an issue back then, since servers were community operated and usually had an admin that would just ban cheaters that managed to get past Valve anti-cheat, and they were banned manually and added to various community sites to track cheating profiles that got past Valve anti-cheat. To sum things up so far, players sorted where they wanted to play by themselves, making them seek out players of similar skill. You learn the game faster if everyone around you is good. Cheaters were not a problem, since we had the tools to deal with them ourselves, since we owned the servers. And then the Uber update hit and made TF2 free to play. Since TF2 was already scarce on servers with paying users, having a flood of free users flood all the servers and all being equally as clueless was not the best way of integrating them into the already established game. We had a massive influx of players who had no idea how to play the game at all, entering all the servers all at once, meaning that all servers would be full and there would be little chance of you getting into your favorite server that you normally went into. If my memory serves me right, then Valve servers were introduced with the Uber update. However, Quick Play put people in community servers as well, flooding them with new players, as well as keeping Valve servers stocked as well. And keep in mind that the average skill of the free-to-play players that joined is a lot lower than today, and you know that today's players aren't exactly top of the basket themselves. The negative term, fucking free-to-play, came from this, which is a normal reaction considering what happened. So you had clueless players filling your pubs and overall fucking over your game experience with their cluelessness. The sorting you have done of servers, seeking out the community and peers of similar minds was abolished with this update. Server owners got so frustrated, as well as, donating players were not happy with this either, people who donated to the server owners. They started making their own plugins who would prevent free-to-play players from joining the servers altogether and saving their community by building walls, effectively, around their servers where those filthy free-to-play players could not pass through or just got kicked instantly. Which is not an ideal situation for anyone, so Valve got the idea of adding more Valve servers to fix the issue of flooded servers, and by adding more Valve servers of their own and removing more community servers from the list. These are mostly community servers that used ads in their message of the day or otherwise had a pay-to-win model where if you paid or donated via PayPal, you got like super stats and you could run super fast, infinite ammo. Totally broken, and that would give the new players, especially free-to-plays, the wrong idea of how Team Fortress 2 worked. Basically, what Valve tried to do is to add an automated system for putting people in server. Whether skill was a part of that, we may never know, but let's assume it isn't, because they don't do that now even. And now we're at the point where Quick Play just put people in Valve servers, and everyone could fit into a game and you didn't have to wait anymore. This was the beginning of the downfall of Team Fortress 2, as I knew it. In the beginning of this Quick Play, most of you probably just played Quick Play if you wanted to start playing during this update. However, we paying veterans would just go back to our normal community servers and continue business as usual. However, this created a new trend. You would queue for your community server and then play on Valve servers while you waited. This was fine in the beginning, but after a while, more and more players found themselves playing on Quick Play servers and owning noobs more interesting than playing with people of equal skill on a community servers. On community servers, you had to endure various maps that were in the rotation. Some maps you might necessarily not agree with, but in Quick Play, you didn't. People would find themselves slowly beginning to leave the community servers when those maps came up in favor of Quick Play, to play their favorite map over and over again. The exclusivity that once was in the game that made you sit through maps that you didn't necessarily want to play was gone. Impatience was rewarded and being patient wasn't, as we got the server killing maps. Maps that came on, that were in the rotation, that only few people enjoyed, and the rest left for Quick Play. Quick Play also created the notion and the way of playing that when the map is over, you leave the server and you queue for a new one, which before you never did that because you wanted to stay on the server for as long as possible and not lose your slot because of this exclusivity. Iterate this over a certain amount of time, and people's view began to change on how you play the game. I witnessed several of my favorite high-skilled servers shrivel and die due to this, as the mentality of the game and how you played kept changing. The impatience took over. Fast forward to today, and we have a system that tries to put you in a game of a map of your choice. It's a bit more automated than quick play, as long as quick play provided a list of options. Here, you provide the option, and the game just selects one for you. In the past, being on the server and losing, you would endure that and stick it through in hopes that teams would be more balanced in the next map as you played with the same people. And this due to the waiting you had to do in order to get in, so the exclusivity made it better somehow. However, now with casual and the abundance of servers and seemingly low wait times if you solo queue, and of course the introduction of the experience system, which means nothing, there is no reason for you to stay in a game where you are losing. Sure, you won't get any XP for not completing the round, but the experience doesn't mean anything, so what's the point? Not only that, if you choose to stay as the map rolls over to the next map in a vote, the teams stay the same. So if you lost the last game, you're gonna lose this game too. By eliminating community choice and player self-sorting in an awful attempt to try and automate this, Valve has created a state of the game where being impatient are rewarded, and there is no point in playing a game if you are losing, as you can just leave and re-queue for hopes of a better game. Not to mention that they even turned off auto balance, which was one of the last bastions of automated team balance still left in the game that worked. Old auto balance, as griefy and angry people got about it, meant that if one team had less players than the others, if you were the unlucky person who got killed first, you would get switched over. So you would play super carefully and try not to be that guy. I was the guy who usually went over voluntarily, since I had the tools to do so of my own free will. But now they have to ask me politely, offering a reward that means nothing. Nobody would ever want to switch teams if you are winning, because winning means better stats and losing means worse stats and less experience. So why would you ever do that? So to sum it all up, so far, Valve has created a system that killed off community-based server operation, cheat handling, and skill seeking and learning, and instead introduced a new way of playing that rewards impatience and encourages you to leave if you are losing the game. The only way I can see this being fixed is to get the community servers back in the game. But the loss of faith and trust in the Team Fortress 2 developer team, I don't see this happening. Many have moved on to other games, and I do not primarily just play TF2 anymore like I used to. I primarily play Overwatch these days. Not because it's a better game, far from it. I think TF2 is way superior to Overwatch, but their matchmaking is able to match me up with people of similar skill, while Team Fortress 2 remains completely inept to do so over and over. Before, I was able to find people of similar skill and sort of find my own home on community servers, but these have died off as a result of the new system that Valve themselves implemented in order to fix a problem they went about in the wrong way. Valve tried to replace the way we sorted things ourselves. They tried to create a system doing what we do ourselves. What we got was a system that was completely inept to do anything remotely close to the sorting and matchmaking we did ourselves. A good example of this, on a smaller scale that is very recent, is the introduction of the competitive matchmaking we got. We used our own community-based matchmaking with leagues and LANs. People and communities did this themselves. They made their own leagues, their own ladders, their own skill tiers. They hired their own players. They did everything themselves, and it works great. Then Valve implemented a competitive system that tried to do these things, but failed horribly. So instead of having the quick play effect, where players abandoned the community and went for the matchmaking, the competitive players did the opposite. The resourceful, competitive players stuck with the way they did things, sorting matches, games, and players by themselves, and leaving this non-functioning mess of matchmaking to rot on its own. Same fate as the community servers have. If you've been watching me for a while, you know that the GPS stands for General Problem Solver, and that I try to solve problems to the best of my abilities. But with this one, Valve has dug a hole so deep and so wide that we can no longer see the sky. The only way to fix this is to make the TF2 server experience exclusive again, but that won't happen because there's so much stuff that has changed. Valve has created things that they wanted to fix things, but has made it ultimately worse and killed off the most resourceful community that they had, the community servers. So what does the future bring? I don't know, but let's hope that they figure this out, because I can't see this becoming any better. I can only see it getting worse.